This is every Minecraft build that only pros can do.
As the Minecraft genius Seth Bling shows, using a mixture of invisible shulkers and armor stands, we can create a fairly convincing 45-degree slope in our world. And while some of the blocks like Diamond Ore don't work quite right, it is still impressive to see just how much is possible here, even if it does feel illegal to watch. You might not notice it at first, but down here we've added a special room trim to the walls of the house. And how did we do this? Well, the answer comes down to item frames, but not how you'd think. But rather, if you use an item frame to mark your spot and then type in this command, you can summon a falling sand entity right into place. And the end result is pretty convincing. By linking nether portals in a specific way, we're able to make it so that we can give one portal two destinations depending on where you stand on it. And this is going to become a lot more obvious if we use something like a tall nether portal. Because here we could have it that if we stand at the top of the portal with a secret place, then that'll be the only way we teleport to our secret base. But if you go through it normally, you go to the standard location of a nether fortress. Besides, whoever wants to teleport through the top half of the portal anyway? If you design it right, they'll just think you made a tall nether portal for show, and your secret's safe from there.
Everyone hates making trips back to their chests to restock every time they run out of rockets. And I don't think an ender chest is the solution. It really just pushes off the problem to restock later. So that's why what DocM did here is really impressive to me. This here is a system that'll wirelessly restock his rockets whenever he gets low. And while that sounds like command block magic, it's actually redstone magic. And a bit of a glitch. See, with a lot of powered rails, we can do something called update suppression, completely stopping the game from updating. And then, with a certain setup of hoppers, we can remotely link our inventory to a chest. And that process is called item shadowing, meaning with your hotbar set up in a certain way, you can infinitely use rockets without ever having to carry more than what's in your offhand. And now we just need a way to wirelessly recharge your mending elytra. Then we'd really have something going.
Nothing beats the comfort of your own bed, but with a machine like this, we can turn those sweet dreams into straight up nightmare fuel. And to set it up, we've got a couple of different options, but all of which are based around a manipulation of the respawn mechanics to make sure that our friends always wake up in a lava bath. So while prisons like Pandora's Vault are a lot more flashy, this cuts down to the basics and works just the same, so I'd suggest checking your next bed very carefully. Every now and then, Minecraft adds a feature that doesn't make much sense, like the water breathing arrows, for instance. I mean, I don't know how often your friend is drowning, and then the solution is to deal more damage to help them out. But even if they aren't practical, at least on Bedrock, we can chuck a couple of these on a slime block pusher and make ourselves a pretty fountain. Adding a bit of color to your house can go a long way, and by that logic, this colorful contraption should help out a ton. Though, as the title says in this post, it's maybe more fit for giving you a migraine than a masterpiece. Here, you'll notice that the player lined up a 2-block hole with a full-scale build behind it, which is an odd sight for sure. And while it's easy to admire the skill put in, anyone can just as easily tell that this jar of jelly beans just doesn't match up. But hey, it's impressive nonetheless. Did you know that smoke from a campfire is able to pass through a block? Well, sure enough, that's gonna be the basis for this new grill that we're building. Since with a couple of looms like this, we can lay it out in such a way that it looks like we've got a smoking grill for our outdoor patio. And honestly, when the alternative is building one of these out of a bunch of iron and minecarts, for those of us on a budget, I think this will more than do the trick. Parkour is a pretty straightforward concept. You have a goal and you have to jump to get there. I mean, it's not rocket science. But to spice up that idea, we need to talk about parallel universes. Or more specifically, using command blocks to jump between two realities like so. See, as it's laid out, we not only have to make sure where we land our jump, but also switch to the right clock to make the blocks appear. And if you ask me, that really takes your jumping puzzle to another level, literally.
Since glass blocks are transparent by nature, not with just how they look, but how they're coded, we're able to put entities like armor stands inside of the block. And because of that, we could take after what JSY Panther did here and have ourselves a beautiful display case to show off your items. Just simply align your armor stand like so, and then you could show off basically anything you want inside of here, whether that's a dragon egg, or even just the first wooden pickaxe you built inside of your world. But unfortunately, this is only survival friendly if you're using it with something like the Armor Statues data pack. But as someone who would recommend using that data pack in any world that you use anyway, I think then it's all the more reason to try this inside of your world.
Leather helmets don't serve much of a purpose in a Minecraft run, because in the time it takes to get the leather necessary, most of us are already finding iron in the caves. But what they lack in survival, they make up for in creative. Here we can use command blocks to make our own leather helmet animations, which turns this piece of junk into a work of art. Trapping your friends in Minecraft is a real joy, but in a game where even bedrock could be destroyed, how do you keep them from breaking out? Well, according to the evil masterminds of the community, we've got a solution like this to do the trick. See, when we lay it out like such, even our best tools are practically useless to bust us out. And I'm guessing your friend gives up on escaping before any of these give out.
Snake is a game that works on basically any machine, and apparently that includes ones that we can build in Minecraft. Since this YouTuber MattBatWing shows off, they were able to code an entire algorithm just to be able to play the game as we would on regular hardware. And things that would sound simple to explain take a whole bunch of redstone just to get to work. Like, just to be able to remove the tail right, you need this entire grid of redstone here. And while it looks a bit confusing to see all the redstone redstone, when you actually watch it play out on the screen, it moves pretty fluid, and I just think that's incredible.
As it turns out, texture packs aren't the only place you can add animated textures to Minecraft. As you can see right here, if we split this map up into 4 quadrants and then play a simple 4-frame animation, then all we gotta do is rotate it, and there you go, it's animated. Sure, it's very silly, and it's probably not the most practical form of animation, but personally this takes me back to messing around with flipbooks as a kid. When you see some of the examples that you can do when playing around with this, it's definitely worth a shot if you got the time. And if you don't want to spend the time slaving away at animation, I guess you could just make a 4-panel comic. Pranking your friends is a rite of passage on a multiplayer server. And hey, we're plenty guilty of that as well. So to give them a run for their money, why don't we hit them where it hurts? Their diamonds. See, by using a few item frames and map art, we can create a pretty convincing diamond ore. Or at least convincing from this side, since when you walk around to the other end, it's proven fake. And by that logic, we can make just about any decoy block in the game that we dream of, which offers quite the surprise if you ask me. Minecraft blocks come in one shape and size. That is, until today. See, by using distance and a clever stair-step-like build, we can make it seem as if the block that we placed is actually quite small. In this way, we practically guarantee that any visitors will be left with a question mark as to how it works. But besides a prank, you might actually find yourself using this on a larger scale. And really, we'll leave the finer details of that to you. But I will say, this could make for a real mind-bending entrance to your next base. We can wait for this build hack to load in, but the truth is, it never will, because that's the whole point. And by mixing together an invisible item frame with a goat horn like this, we can use a command block that constantly updates it so that it rotates and creates this loading screen animation that we see here, which can be great for making your friends think they have a bad internet connection, or it might just be useful to have for the next time you set up a new map and you need something for the players to see while you get everything ready. And really, so few of the Minecraft textures are animated, so it's nice to see us make do where we can. Thanks to the works of C418, Minecraft has plenty of music to listen to. And then, through note blocks, we can add in a fair bit of our own tunes as well. But while those instruments are well and good to listen to, what if we want something a bit more visual? Well, that's where the dragon heads come in. But of course, not like this. But rather, if we follow along how others have done, we can push these dragon-headed armor stands inside of other blocks, giving us a pretty convincing piano to use in our worlds.
Here we have a design that uses slime block flying machines to make a fully functional crane game. And it's all survival friendly. Since as J2KL lays out in this design, we're able to use this controller at the front to precisely maneuver wherever we want our slime block claw to be. And then, when it's over the diamond ore, or the stone if that's what you want, I won't judge, then you can extend the claw, have it pick it up, and it'll move it back to where it needs to be. And honestly, just looking up at the ceiling and seeing all of the different pistons that it takes to move this block a couple of different ways, it's pretty satisfying to see. If not a little confusing, but really, all the best redstone's like that. Here's how to turn your pistons from this into this. And the secret behind this isn't doing something like McMakestein's mod, even though that is cool, but instead, by just using the set block command with different parts of the piston, we can separate the head from the body and then place fence post lining in the middle. And there you have it, a giant piston. And if you really wanted to, you could even make this into the sticky variant as well. Just don't expect it to retract anything. There's no off switch for this one. This is a bed for me, and this is a bed for my son. Or it sure looks like that, because by using some sneaky armor stands like this, we can shrink down our regular items to a much more manageable size. And with just that, we'll have ourselves a child-sized bed and a child-sized chest to keep all their items. Just don't try to open it up, then the illusion will fall apart. As we've shown in the past, map art can be a powerful tool, and whether that's for pranking your friends or trapping your enemies, this technique definitely has merit. But what if we want something a bit more creative? Well, our answer for that lies in the void. See, it turns out that maps render transparent if there's nothing but glass over the void. Meaning, for us in creative, we can take that to our advantage and basically add our own sprites into the game, which allows for some pretty surreal sights. So while I don't want you thinking this is easy to do by any means, it does have its place as another tool for your building arsenal. Let's make a working globe in Minecraft. Now, Minecraft already has a globe in the cartography table, but compared to this one that we're gonna build, that's not even on the same level. Sure enough, by using the commands that user JMHMir lays out, we can use an armor stand with a special player head to slowly rotate in place on our desk. And while the commands to do it look pretty scary, don't worry. All you need to know is that this one summons in the globe armor stand, and then this one, when put in a repeating command block, will rotate that armor stand like so. Here we've got both a flying machine and death from above, since the design here makes a fully operational bomber plane that'll seamlessly carry you over whatever destruction you lay out. And despite clearly being effective, I also think this looks quite cool. But as you can see from Jackson's video, building this on a server that can't handle the lag might just mean that your machine goes up in smoke instead of your friend's base. But hey, at least you got your wish. You definitely did bomb the plane, just not in the order you hoped to. When it comes to storing your stuff, a chest minecart maybe isn't your first pick, but that might be our mistake, since when we stack them like so, we can turn these roller coaster rejects into proper working drawers. And frankly, I think that's a nice change of pace. So while these can't store as much
much as the double chests that we're used to, they do offer a storage solution that shows a bit more effort than just a standard barrel. Ever since they were added back in 1.14, barrels have offered a chunk of options for how we build, but it turns out that on Bedrock, we can do even more. See, as this post lays out, we can use a mix of pistons and observers to earn ourselves a permanently open barrel, and that means a whole new texture to use in our builds. So if you don't have a debug stick, this might be your next best pick. When you think of a diamond sword, the last thing to come to mind is decoration, but it turns out that might be our mistake, since with the help of invisible armor stands posed like so, we can make some really beautiful designs, including these enchanted angel wings like so. Or use netherite ones and you can get something a bit more sinister. And whatever you choose, this just goes to show that even a weapon can be a thing of beauty.
Though with the Dinnerbone name tag, we can take a breeze, flip it upside down, and then use its particle trail to give an extra amount of detail to any kind of thing that we want up here on the surface. So in this example, we have a candle that's outlined by the breeze's wind effect to give ourselves a magic candle inside of your build. And I love how perfectly it just fits in the center of this, right? I mean, getting a breeze to stand still at all sounds tough enough, but if you're able to go through the effort of doing that, this example proves that it's more than worth it.
As any game designer knows, it isn't always easy to get the players to follow the correct path, and more often than not, when someone gets lost, they also get frustrated, and that's the last thing we want. So to help guide our players along the straight and narrow, why not illuminate the path like so? By chucking an armor stand with a helmet into a minecart, we can clip the top of its noggin outside to give an animated motion to our road. If you're having trouble finding the dead coral for a TNT duplication machine, don't sweat it, just use glass. No joke, even though it's a less popular way of performing this glitch, all it takes is a setup like so using observers to make an equally effective TNT duplication machine. And you might find this could be even more effective on a skyblock world, where coral isn't exactly close by. And in any case, it's just nice to be able to build one of these without having to need Silk Touch right away. Steve's addition to Smash Bros was a huge deal, and not just to see this character rise from a solo-made indie game into legend status, but also just to see how cool it'd be if minecarts worked like this instead of this. And since that reveal trailer, it's been not just a want, but a need to have this in the base game, and thankfully we have just that. With commands, we not only have a minecart that can place rails in front of it, but it'll also ride across water, lava, and even different dimensions, which is just insane. This is a flying machine, and this is a flying submarine. Since by using the same technology, user Dylan D was able to make this very realistic submarine that can cruise through the water with no issues. And while that alone is wild enough to experience, what really sells this to me is the little details, like the fact that we're able to hop inside these minecarts for a quick little ride, or if we place TNT up on top of these blocks, they'll get pushed up with the soul sand bubble streams and explode any ships that are above us. Bombs away. Minecraft trees don't usually have branches, so let's fix that. With the help of hidden armor stands, you can add in little log details to your tree trunks. That way, you don't have to wait for a big oak tree to grow before you get any branches for yourself. If you've ever felt like someone's watching you, then you know it's a creepy concept, and this example should bring out those same feelings. See, as you move around the head, the eyes will track you like so, or at least that's what you'd think, because with some extra depth, the redstone can move along the black background for a scary sight. But even when you do know how they work, it's hard to say they're not effective, or at the very least, unsettling.
When you're getting ready to give your friend a tour of your base, first gonna have them jump down this redstone trapdoor into the entrance to your base. I mean, why wouldn't they jump? There's water down there, must be safe. That is, until we push a button while we're down below that sends a redstone signal so that a brown mushroom will get filled up with bone meal and create a roof over the water that they were supposed to land on. I mean, this is basically the same thing that Dream did at the bottom of the ravine in the Manhunt, except way more technical, and reusable too. Just not reusable on the same friend. I doubt they'll be jumping down any other things after you pull this on them.
Mob farms are nothing new, but a passive mob farm, that's something special. But if we use something like World Eaters to get rid of all the other spawnable area in a place, and once we add in well-lit grass blocks into the middle of spawn, we guarantee that all peaceful mobs that are supposed to be spawning only spawn where we want them to be. And then we use a flying machine to push them over to the killing method and get ready for the next batch. And if you're wondering why we built it so low in the world, again, that's to increase the amount of spawn rates that we're gonna get, which is a hassle to build, but it's also just about the only reliable way that we're getting a constant automatic source of cows, pigs, sheep, and horses. So I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. When you're playing Minecraft for long enough, you're sure to accumulate a lot of junk, which is par for the course, but at some point you gotta get rid of it. And while stashing it in a forgotten chest or throwing it into fire is a nice way to go about it, no folks, what you need instead is a bouncy trash can using slime blocks. The way it works is simple. You place your items on the floor, you hit this button, and boom, they will bounce right up into the sky and get burnt to a crisp. Is it satisfying? Oh, absolutely. But just make sure you don't get too close to the trash chute.
When you get up close to this one, it's hard to tell what's going on, because really, there's nothing to see from down here. But then as we start to pull back, all those smaller squares that we added into the pattern will eventually become larger squares until, as we zoom out even more, you get to see this distorted effect on the square outline, giving you a wavy square effect when there's really no waves in sight, and also a bit of artifacting as the game tries to render this all in one image. But when you look past that, you can see that truly all these lines are straight. Follow along any part of this square and you'll notice that it all lines up. But taking the image as a whole, because of the way that we have the square patterns going inside of the actual squares, it tricks your eyes so that you're thinking that you're following a non-straight line. And then adding some heavy contrast with black and white squares, the effect gets pretty good, even when you know how it works.
Who doesn't love a good maze? And while building these out of leaves and stone is a bit more common, they don't exactly raise the stakes. So if you really want to guarantee that your friend's on edge when they come back in, then all you gotta do is build a lava wall maze around them. If you're not prepared, these things are definitely a pain to navigate. Is it cruel to do? Well, I won't lie to you. It absolutely is. But is it also fun? Well, most definitely. And honestly, this might be the most cursed maze ever made ever since the Greeks were around. Walking through walls sounds like quite the superpower to have, but doing that without glitches should be impossible, or it was until this user's discovery. See, by using these immersive portals, we can give off the illusion of walking through a solid mirror. And while pulling this off might require some prior knowledge of the mod in question, as long as you light the portal properly and add in the glass, we can still walk through as planned, letting you trade places with yourself and likely leave a group of confused bystanders when you do, which is well worth trying out, trust me. At first glance, this may seem like just any other house, maybe a bit on the smaller side, but otherwise nothing unusual. Though with a closer look, you can see that this isn't some bad texture pack, but rather it's a supersized scale model of the real thing. Let me explain. Here, the creator built it pixel by pixel to recreate each block type within the house, and then they copy and pasted their mega blocks to build something that looks like a regular house. And while using scaled blocks like this might be a tall order, it's definitely fun to see once it's all laid out. Clearly, command blocks are capable of some pretty wild things, but what this user pulls off feels like an act of science fiction. See, what's happening here is that the machine can scan the blocks within the area, assign them to a particle, and then recreate a copy down below. Meaning you only have to build one big statue and you get a little souvenir for the same effort. And even better, it'll even rotate for a proper display, which I've got to say is a lot more exciting than just another static statue. When you're making a big build, sometimes the littlest details can go a long way. And for that, I think particle effects definitely fit the bill. And while there are plenty of existing ones to put on display with command blocks, that doesn't stop us from making our own. For example, take this vat of acid. By itself, it looks pretty bland, more like a green pool than anything else. But add some invisible armor stands into position with slime blocks on their head, and now we've got a bubbling mixture fit for a radiation warning. Or hey, do what these folks did and add some custom leaves falling off your cherry tree. Complex doors are a staple of the redstone community, but while Mumbo can show you how to make 40 of those in a couple minutes, I bet you won't see one of these too often. And folks, your eyes don't deceive you. This is built entirely within vanilla Minecraft, albeit it did take the creator around 1200 command blocks to build, but the result of which is still pretty special. And honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start building one of these. But luckily, the smooth animation is something that we can all enjoy through the world download. Nether portals are something of a necessity for long distance travel, and while they definitely have their place, what if we want to just teleport around the overworld? Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, Ender Pearls are the solution, but not like this, though rather like this. See, through the help of the Ender Pearl stasis chambers, we can interconnect our redstone and make a kind of teleportation network. And while it's not as robust to use the flue powder from Harry Potter, it does guarantee us a way out so long as we already established a pearl on the other side. So with a pair of feather falling boots to ease the damage, this could be your new way to fast travel. This farm can produce over 1 million items per hour, which is a ridiculous number to wrap your head around. But through the help of glitched portals and update suppression, it's possible to get enough hoglins spawning through to the overworld that we get over 1500 double chests worth of cooked pork every single hour. And I'm hungry, but that should be enough to even feed me. And if we go over to the nether side, you'll see that we have a row of glitched portals like this that make sure that every time that a hoglin spawns, it comes over to our overworld and gets cooked for our dining pleasure. Moving around a bunch of items is a boring process. And whether you're doing this manually or through a hopper pipeline, the truth is that it's not the most interesting either way. So to fix that, these automatic pipes might be the new solution. Since with a ring of trapdoors like so, we can still have our items flow in a water stream, but ditch the bland aesthetics that we're used to. too. And hey, it might not be as efficient as using ice blocks underneath, but something tells me these look a lot nicer floating through the air. So if you're looking for a taste of the Buildcraft mod in the base game, this could be the best we've got.
Armor stands aren't just good for showing off our armor, but also for showing off our items. And here, this user took a page out of Zombie Cleo's book on Hermitcraft, where you can use the armor stand data pack from something like Vanilla Tweaks to use the armor stands as item frames. And then by combining that with hanging signs like this, we can get a unique design to show off our rockets and wheat for sale. And while it does get a little hard to format the text when you're trying to make the sign look just right, this is definitely a lot more eye-grabbing than just having text alone, so I think you make up for that shortcoming. And personally, I see this as an evolution of using item frames and signs that we've shown off in the past build hacks video. Now we're not just limited to blocks, we can use any item that we want here. And angle it too. It looks really cool.
Now, using sea lanterns and snow-covered maps is already a famous way to trap your friends. An infinity room, a matrix room, whatever you want to call it, it's been done before. And while I still fully love this design, there's still more we can do with this. Like, for example, what if we trap them in a different color? All of a sudden, that white infinity room of nothingness turns into a blue screen of death. Anyone who plays on Windows is already pre-programmed to get a shock of horror when they see this shade of blue on their screen, so it's a pretty good way to give them a jump and a startle when they come back onto the server. If you don't have World Edit loaded up, then the fill command is the best you got, and let's be honest, it's not the most robust, so we'll need to get creative to get the most out of it, and luckily this seems to do the trick. See, if you were to build in a regular shape and then fill from layer 2 onwards with carpet, then it will only stack where the pattern is, and then you change the carpet for your block of choice, and now enjoy the time that you've saved. How did this zombie get so much bigger than this other one? Well, while I can answer that, the truth is neither of them are. Or rather, they're both the same size. They're offset in just a way so that this one that's close to us looks bigger in the background, whereas the one that's further away seems to be smaller even though it's not that closer up. And honestly, the whole way that this works is by using a tunnel like this. Since by having those flat geometric shapes, it makes it a lot harder for your eye to tell what's going on. So it just figures that by relative scale, that's how big one zombie is compared to the other. Even if, as we know, they're both the same size. Watch closely, because if you blink, you might miss this one. Since by using a Ravager setup like this, we're able to launch ourselves over 1,000 blocks just like that. After building this user design, the steps are pretty simple. We move into the pressure plate while holding the block key, making sure that the fence gate locks us in place, and then after we block enough time so that the Ravager gets stunned, which you can tell by its head shaking around, then we quickly click this minecart, keep blocking, and then wait for it to hit us again, until just like that, we're shot hundreds of blocks away from where we started. Just make sure you have a safe place to land when you get to the other end. After all, you wouldn't want to die 1,000 blocks away from where you're supposed to be.
Now, calling this a bartering machine doesn't even seem fair. With 60 piglins employed, it really feels more like a company. Or a sweatshop more like it. I don't think they're getting breaks. But they're also in the Nether, which I doubt the OSHA really applies to. Labor laws aside, with all this bartering that you're doing, we're able to get 200,000 drops per hour. All of that done with 99.997% efficiency. And what's even cooler than bartering all those items is then watching all those items filter around the sorting system multiple times so that they get picked up. And the only times that you don't get all the items from this farm is if they accidentally get discarded because of the sorting system. I mean, when you're getting enough iron nuggets to literally put to shame some traditional iron farms, I think we can call this efficient.
Take it from me, adding a hidden basement to your Minecraft house takes it up a definite notch. But you know what takes it that little step further? Developing a secret backdoor entrance to that said basement. Now, how you go about building the secret entrance is an open-ended question. There are a lot of different options to build here. But personally, my go-to is using this secret rabbit-based carrot detector, so that when you hold your carrot key nearby, Bugs Bunny over here will sniff it out and let you right in. It's straightforward, it's weird, and most importantly, it should keep your secret stash safe. If you're falling from a great height, water is the all-star pick for safety, and we can use that idea to our favor. See, if you're looking to get even with someone on the server, this water illusion is a solid candidate to do so. As you'll notice, by making several custom maps with a water design like so, we can make a convincing spot for them to land on. Only once they aim for that puddle, they'll just break their legs on a couple of item frames, and that should be a rude awakening for sure. Stop using item frames and instead use these signs, since unlike those item frames, these aren't going to lag out your game nearly as much. And by using different kinds of ASCII art like this user does here, it can still be quite effective. And plus, you'll still have room to type out the actual label in case people can't decipher your abstract art. And for my money, I'd say this is a lot more creative than just putting a leather in between some sticks and doing it that way. And better yet, you could even dye the sign, offering up more variety than you maybe expected. We all know bone meal can be a very useful tool to have, but sometimes getting enough of it can be a real hassle. So to keep your farms fueled and supplied going forward, how about we get a bit more creative and turn stone right into bone meal? I know, that sounds crazy, but as members of the community have found out, we can use the new moss functionality to turn stone generators into bone meal farms. And just like that, we've got a self-sustainable bone meal farm that's sure to provide plenty more for your farms in the future. How does this river flow? Because if you try to follow it around with your eyes, it clearly pours down here, but then the water somehow also ascends up to that top level. It's confusing to say the least. But what seems like a break in physics is really just the result of a cleverly placed water feature, since instead of having a waterfall, we have a water tower that starts to sell the illusion from the right angle. And then by adding in some boats for extra detail, it really starts to look like we did this legit.
You ever wish a yes or no question had a choice for all of the above? Well, that's where this build comes in. Since with this strange bit of perspective, we're able to set up an illusion so that from this angle, it looks like yes, and then from over here, it looks like no. And then from other angles, it looks like Ness, but you can ignore those angles. It's really the two that we're caring about. But what I love so much about this illusion is just how classic it is to Minecraft. I mean, this example that we're showing here by the Malta 87 was built 11 years ago, back before Minecraft is even released. And while you do need to build up quite a bit of scale for this to actually work, I think the results are pretty impressive when you go through with it. Building vault doors with redstone's nothing new. And while we've definitely seen some really large piston doors, what about a door made out of really large pistons? Made by Crafty Masterman, this here isn't just a big vault, but it's a big vault made out of even bigger large-scale blocks. And those large-scale blocks are completely functional. Like, no joke, look at the pistons, the repeaters, even the redstone dust and torches. All of them work, and all of them are giant. And honestly, when you look small compared to the buttons on the build, you know that you got something serious.
Showing off your base to a friend can be a great bonding experience, until you find that one greedy one. Yeah, you know the one. The player that always has a nose that they want to stick in every single chest you have lying around. So, to keep your privacy and take out the trash, so to speak, why not build a bit of a Trojan horse trap to do the trick? I mean, since they're already opening every chest anyway, it's not your fault if they just happen to find that one trapped chest that'll take them right down to their doom. Building a house is a tale as old as time in Minecraft, but having the game build a house for you is a bit more exciting. That's why this display of a house built entirely of falling blocks is so wild to see. What's happening here is that we have a command block array perfectly timed to launch each and every block into its respective place, until it finally gives us our finished result. And full disclosure, for this to work, you will need a flat surface. Otherwise, those building blocks will just collide with one another and fall right off course. Even though Minecraft is a sandbox game, there are certain rules we're not supposed to break, like placing blocks above a certain height. I mean, why else would it be called the build limit? But that doesn't explain why this site works like so. See, by using a method the community's found for mixing falling sand entities with invisible shulkers, we can essentially make our own builds both above and below the world limit, which can result in some pretty wild sights for sure. So if you're looking for a project in creative, it's a fun tool to use. As we know, Minecraft doesn't allow for leaves to change the season, which is fine if you want an evergreen, but it means our maple trees and cherry blossoms are out of luck. But thankfully, the coral can help us out. As you can see, by using commands to set up certain coral plants like so, we can create some really beautiful leaves to coat our trees. And while you'll need to set the world so that the coral doesn't decay, I think the results are worth it. Instead of placing all these flowers by hand, we're gonna do it with a bow. Strange as it may seem, using the place feature command, we're able to swap out an entity for a decoration. So if we set up the execute command like this in a command block, that'll be able to turn our spray of arrows into a beautiful flower garden. And if you want to make this whole process even faster, I'd recommend using a multi-shot crossbow so you get even more of a spray at the end. Just make sure not to shoot anybody while they're enjoying the roses.
Flying machines open up a lot of great opportunities for redstone, but I for one am more interested in this walking machine, since what we have here is Mumbo Jumbo's famous example of building a walking house in Minecraft. And while it's not exactly going to be a comfortable journey, you can't really store as much as you would in a regular house, it's hard to say it isn't impressive when you walk past spawn with one of these. And seeing how other players have taken this idea and ran with it in their own flying bases, I think that's pretty special, if not a little terrifying.
You might have seen this build recreating the entire universe in Minecraft, but here's how to do it yourself. Since with the help of glowing invisible item frames, we can mix together nether stars and skulk veins to have ourselves our very own piece of the cosmos right up on our ceiling. And then with magma blocks and frog lights for the sun, the whole thing really starts to come together, especially if you use something like shaders.
Now sometimes the best way to use a dirty looking block is to make that the whole point. And as the user patches shows us over here on Reddit, by using invisible item frames or armor stands to put these items on top of the ground, then we can use an armor stand and a fence like this to make ourselves a vacuum cleaner, and now it tells a story. We gotta go clean up the mess inside of your base. And honestly, I like to think about this as a fun bit of world building for all the items that we throw out onto the floor to despawn in 5 minutes. If they didn't despawn, we'd have a lot of things like this. Who knows, maybe there's some invisible vacuum cleaner going through and cleaning up our mess. If so, I appreciate it, but don't expect to get paid for the cleaning.
With the new update comes a bunch of untested territory, and the caves include Minecliff's expansion is no different. So that's why I, along with many others, were surprised to see this Reddit user point out just how dripstone can shatter into pieces when it's exploded. For one, I'm amazed it doesn't break into items on the spot, but then to see it split up like this is even stranger. And apparently it's because each piece isn't actually connected, but they just fall close enough to look like one straight thing. Though regardless of that reason, it's still strange to see. Now, we've talked a lot about how great it can be to reinvent and improve your Minecraft house with redstone. But what if we took it that one step further, got a bit more meta, and built the entire house out of redstone? Now, frankly, this can get a bit crazy, and the redstone is complicated to say the least. But being able to have your house both built and then retracted entirely through redstone systems, that's a sight to see. And sure, as you can see from this time lapse, it does take some time for the whole process to be done. But folks, Rome wasn't built in a day, so getting an entire house done and dusted in a few minutes seems like a good deal. Instead of a minecart track like this, try this instead. With the way that minecart's rails work, we can manipulate the physics in such a way so that when we get pushed by a piston, we actually end up going extremely fast on this line of rails. Sure, the end result does cost a lot of redstone, but when you see the kind of speeds that we're able to output here, I think that quickly makes it worth it. And plus, there's even different piston bolt designs that'll let us go upwards, diagonally, or even move mobs around as well. And that would be the reason why many technical Minecraft players use this as their go-to way to travel thousands of blocks in between their builds, especially when it works in the nether. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?